So yes, message is absolutely the number one thing that's going to cause people. Like we'll watch VHS tapes of Jim Rohn talking black and white. He's spoken on stages. And when they set up a stage, he's dressed nicely. He's not wearing rags. He's not wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants. I don't know. No dagging.
Okay, message taken.
On stage, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is a way to increase production value?
Well, it's all about lighting. Apple did their last event in October using the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But the lighting, they spent $120,000 on lighting. I've been creating video content for others for over a decade and a half. But when I was starting out creating content on camera, I was like terrified. But what did help, what absolutely helped was
Guys, I nailed the buttons today. If you're enjoying these episodes, go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and now on YouTube as well.
That is right. If today's guests help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode. And of course, don't forget to leave a 5-star review.
That's right. Guys, our guest today is a very important person in our life. Might have changed my opinion around equipment and production. Just a tiny bit, which we'll chat in just a second. He's also the master of building studio. He's raising 4 kids. I'm raising 2 and I'm going crazy. I was just telling Fonzie about crazy Mateo wanting to jump off the couch yesterday. He's also launching different podcasts. He's a published author. And last time he gave me a kid's book, which is amazing. He's like, every time I meet him, there's like a new gadget, a new thing that he's doing, and it's super exciting. And I cannot wait.
Yeah. I'm curious to learn how he does all that with 4 kids.
No, man.
Yeah. Also, I think
true superpower.
I think his podcast has over 400 episodes, like 450 episodes, which is absolutely insane.
I mean, he's just trying to catch up to us, baby. Let's go. No easy feat. And I guess let's bring him on. You good?
Yeah.
All right. Guys, with that said, please welcome our dear friend, Junaid Ahmed.
Welcome, Junaid.
Hey guys, so excited to be here. You know, I've known you guys for a long time, but it wasn't till the last couple of years that we actually started hanging out and started having a conversation. So super excited to be here on content.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, be honest, right? It was Foncie's mail at the events, right? That's why you never approached us and having conversations. Yeah.
You know, my aura can be a little bit intimidating at times. I understand that. But, you know, people might be watching this right now. They're saying, wow, Junaid has such a cool setup. And if you're only listening to this and you've been to events like Podfest, Podcast Movement, you probably have seen Junaid. He is the one cool guy with a box that literally brings all the equipment perfect for recording, right? I think it's called a studio in a box.
So
go ahead.
Studio
No,
Box,
go ahead.
It's called the Go Box. It's called the Go Box Studio, for video portable production studio in a box that you could roll on with you, set it up in 2 minutes, and start creating content, because that's how you get by.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna start with this.
And we're gonna end the episode there. That's it. That's the statement we needed.
I'm gonna start with this. We have a belief that quality of the message is more important than quality of the production, right? And I want to lead with that because I totally understand also the value of the production. I like things that look cool, right? I like to create things that also look absolutely amazing and that they have the touch.
He's a recovering perfectionist too.
But at the same time, at the very beginning of our journey, we try to have this awesome production and things didn't work out. It was too much friction for us. So I just wanted to start with that statement because I know you are the master of high quality production. And again, look at your set, right? You got that change of cameras. Every time you go, I think people already recognize you as, the home studio guy, the studio in a box. You're absolutely amazing. So I'm curious, what is your take on maybe somebody that might be starting on their journey, that they're starting to create content? What is that right balance between production and messaging?
Excellent question, Fonzie. Or do
you can call me both. Either one works.
At the same, it has to be at the same time. I don't know how you're gonna do that, but
excellent question, because when I was starting out, now just to go a little bit into my background, I've been creating video content for others for over a decade and a half. So I've got the technology down, I've got the staging down, I got the lighting, like all of that stuff down. And I was counting on other people that are showing up on the film, on the camera, to have their messaging down, right? But when it came time for me to be in front of the camera, I was like, oh my God, this is hard. This is so hard. I don't know how to do it, right? So I struggled. I struggled with being good on camera. But what I did know that I needed to work on my messaging, right? So yes, I have this massive experience of setting up studios, and I was able to do that for myself. But when I was starting out creating content on camera, I was like terrified. I was like, I don't know how to do this. But what did help, what absolutely helped, was that I had an ongoing podcast that I had been doing for 2.5 years. That helped. Being in Toastmaster for over 4 years, that helped. So you've got to work on the person that's delivering the message. So yes, message is absolutely the number one thing that's going to pause people. Like, we'll watch VHS tapes of Jim Rohn talking black and white. We'll watch these things because they've got the messaging now. They've worked on themselves. They've worked on how to deliver that. So that's absolutely number one. But what do you do to stop the people on the tracks? You got to have the good production as well. You got to go hand in hand with both. So get that messaging down. And even if it's crackly, your followers are still going to listen to that message because they know who you are. And I'm going to back up a little bit about messaging, right? So Jim Rohn, he's spoken on stages. And when they set up a stage, he's dressed nicely. He's not wearing rags. He's not wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants. I don't know. No bagging.
Okay, message taken.
He's on stage, right?
Thank you. Wait.
He's on stage delivering the best message because, again, he's a network marketer. So there's both things. But I'm sure that when he first started, he worked on the messaging too. So you got to work on the messaging because that shows your true authenticity on who you are.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
By the way, when I was like walking from the Jeep here to the office today, I'm like, I look like an Italian mobster with the sweatpants and sweatshirt today. So clearly it transmits through camera today.
Let's go.
But no, I mean, obviously I'm excited. I think we're both like very geeky in the fact that we like tech, and then I'm the guy that likes the tech but doesn't want to look under the hood. I'm like, this is all the data, right? But it's like, oh, it looks nice, and, it feels nice, and that's me. Kind of like if I ever do a tech review, it's gonna be like, well, this computer works, right? But every time we see you at events, right, you have all this incredible ecosystem of things to make production so easy. And I remember when we were talking about the studio in a box, right? We're talking about this, like friction to create. And like you mentioned, you've helped a ton of people that you were counting on them to have their message right? And then on our side, we've seen a similar story with stuff like that, right? We have a post-production service where we clip things, and how it started was like, okay, our ideal client is somebody that knows their message. They just need the help with the production aspect, right? But then we started connecting with a lot of people that they thought they had their message ready, but then after a few recordings, there's a lot of work that we had to do internally, right? Or they didn't have the right home setup. It's like, why is the video quality not the best? I'm like, well, what is the equipment that we're recording with, right? It's like, you're recording with your 720 camera from the laptop with very poor internet, so that, we're getting the Zoom recording. It might not be the best footage that we can get, right? But at the same time, it's like, there's a balance that I think people have to start recognizing between the message and the output. So on our side, that gap kept us from publishing for about a year because we thought the production level had to be taken care of first, and there's a lot of friction because we didn't really know the equipment, we didn't have the right equipment at the time or the flow. And when we decided, guys, let's remove the friction on the production, which is going to be a live stream through an iPhone on Facebook, and increase consistency. That's what allows, like you said, to create consistently, get stronger with the message, and then little by little start upgrading to the point now that we have a physical studio, which is crazy, right? So
100%.
On your side, like, what are... for somebody that's starting out, right? They're like, okay, I have my message. What is an accessible? I think I really want to get into the equipment because I Podfest, I think a year ago.
Wait, before, can I add something before we dive into the equipment and more tactical stuff? Because I do want to go there as well. I'm very curious to, get some tips, especially for that person listening that might be asking themselves, how do I increase the value of my production, maybe with what I have at the moment, right? But before diving into that, I'm very curious on, first, I want to make a remark on having your own studio, having a place of itself. That is just huge value in removing friction. When we started our first podcast, Brews and Bros, we spent an hour every single time we were trying to record just setting up the studio because we didn't have a spot. It was my room. We had to move the bed. We had to place the lights, take out the equipment from the closet. That alone, made us record only 5 episodes and leave the podcast somewhere in there without finishing. So the fact of having a place, I'm sure that office, all the equipment that you have in there, you don't move that probably for anything. You just press a button.
Hands off.
Can you show on your screen for the people watching the video kind of how it looks? Which is super cool. There we go.
Look at that.
Oh, beautiful,
Absolutely
man.
amazing. Multiple screens, the cameras, the lighting. People might see that and they might become a little bit overwhelmed. Like, wow, do I need to set up all that thing? But guess what? Just like as most things in life, they require an investment up front, whether that is obviously time or financial investment. And you invested, obviously, your knowledge and your time on setting that up. It might have taken you a full day, but the benefit is now that you're consistent for over 400 episodes on your podcast, multiple interviews with other people, right? It pays off to have a spot where you record our podcast. That's what we did when we started Content is Profit. We had a little tiny 100%. Office. We said, that is a corner where we're going to record. It was nothing compared to what you have right there at the moment. But we did a little setup that take us literally like 5 minutes on turning it on, placing the phone, and it removed the friction. And guess what? Now we are close to 500 episodes, if not 500 episodes. Now, the question I want to ask before we move into the more tactical aspect of the conversation is, I'm curious on the correlation that you've seen with you and your clients between, production and increase of output. Like, in a way, does it affect their confidence? Are they more excited to produce more content, right? Does it increase that output? And also the correlation on the bottom line of their business, right? Does the production value also, in a way, is tied to increasing profits?
Well, I would say yes. Here's how, right? So number one, just a little backstory on how I got started. I got started like yourself, on my phone. My first season on Hacks and Hobbies was recorded in my car on my phone while I'm commuting from and back to, to work.
Yeah.
So I put in the reps, I got better at it, and I was like, okay, I need to go to the next level. How do I get to the next level? So I was novice, I went to the hobby level. Like, how do I get to that hobby level? Well, let's invest in a microphone. Let's do it in my office. Let's have a conversation with other people. So started inviting people. Again, time after time, it got better and better and better. And because of the pandemic, I, spent time in setting up the studio. Now, before I even set up this studio, I was invited to speak on stage at a LinkedIn local event on iPhone video production or mastering iPhone video production. How do you use your smartphone to create video content? And the reason this guy asked me is because he saw me creating video content as I was walking around with this smartphone. I was like, sure, I'll talk on it. And that inspired me to say, hey, I can now write a book on how to increase this. And in fact, now it's a published book called iPhone Video Production. But that process showed me like maybe I can record a course on it. So just like you were spending an hour setting up your studio space for your podcast, I spent about 2 hours in my basement, and I bought this little vinyl backdrop, and I tried to do this. And when I stood in front of the camera, guess what happened? Nothing. I couldn't speak. I didn't know how to start the conversation, right? I didn't have that part of the reps put in.
Yeah.
So yes, going back to the question, when you have a higher production produced space or a curated space, when you put on that shirt that gives you that superpower, it's almost like putting on a superhero. And, you know, why do superheroes wear that costume? It gives them an image, it brands them. It's like, I can do anything when I'm wearing this. I can do anything when I'm in this suit. So when people show up in physical spaces in their suits, they're like, I'm ready to do anything. I have the confidence, I have the authority, and it commands that. So when you set up your space that's professional looking, yes, you want to do the authentic content where you're on the street, you're outside, you're with your family, and you're creating content on your phone. That's perfectly fine, right? My friend Ken Okazaki talks about the Will Smith effect. So Will Smith have a ton of well-polished production through the movies that he's produced, and that he did a ton of videos on his phone during the pandemic. So that's the Will Smith. So you got to show both sides of you, so people say the real you. So I'd say absolutely it helps with the perception of people watching you. Oh my God, this person actually took the time to put on a shirt, to put on lights, to put on, you know, this persona for me to teach what they're about. My friend Isabella, who I met at Podfest, and you were there, Capshovians Live. She's been creating a ton of content in her room, and then when she stepped up and she rented a studio space to create more content, people reached out to her more. They're like, oh my God, what you're talking about is mind blowing. The video quality stopped me from scrolling to feed, and then I paid attention and then I listened.
I think when we, you know, I guess quick timeline on studios, right? Like from the office corner that we had like a couple superhero like backdrops in there, and then we went to our home studio, which was an extra room in our house. We were doing a standing up, right? We had a couple personal things. We had the Contents Prophet, you know, present that we got from Don, and now whenever we upgraded to this studio, right? Whenever that upgrade happened here, I also felt like there was like more, I guess, like respect in a sense, right? Or people reaching out and be like, wow, that looks amazing, guys. And you could actually feel that, right? But I think it's also like part of the journey, right? Because if you have all the equipment and then, like you say, you freeze, it's going to be really challenging to go that. And I remember being at what, I think it was like the second Podfest that we ever went to, and you see all the vendors, right? And it's really exciting because you see like these mic arms and the new microphones and the new technology and the new cameras and the podcast desk and all this stuff and full of possibilities. And, you know, for visionaries like us, we get so excited. We're like, wow, this will look great here. And I remember having a conversation with a gentleman that he had a big list, and it's a ton of items that was there. And I remember him telling me, it's like, yeah, this is going to be like 5,000 to 7,000. I'm so excited. I'm like, ooh, that's so cool. What's your podcast about? And he's like, I haven't started one yet. Oh boy, oh boy. I froze. Like it gave me, you know, chills. And we started having a conversation of like, why was he willing to invest that amount of money? And then he goes out to tell me that he tried to launch a podcast twice, and because he didn't have the right equipment, he stopped. And that belief, to me, is nonsense, first. I think
you're like, that's an excuse.
That's a massive excuse. But again, I mean, I'm sure he had his own reasons on what that belief, you know, was coming from. But I want to encourage people to be like, don't be that person, right? Start putting your message out there, because it's going to get you the reps. And as you evolve and you move on and your production, you know, level goes higher and higher, people are going to notice that, and they're going to congratulate you, and it's all part of the journey. So enjoy the journey. And I think that's why we today appreciate so much, you know, what you teach and what you have and what you show us every single week in our mastermind, right? And I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. Let me try that out. And, you know, my testing ground, I guess, is our home studio now.
Yeah. I want to add something. I wrote this the other day. Still in the draft stage. I haven't finished it, but I think it goes hand in hand with what you were sharing right now about Isabella as well, right? I called it Unlock Content Reputation. Why do people tune into personalities like Hormozy, Gary V, Junaid, right? Like the Biz Bros. Why do they tune in? The reason they listen to them is the thing that will unlock your content and the perspective with which you create. It is reputation and status. What do you think when you see them on your feed? Why do you stop and listen to them? It's not because of their great looks or their cool locations. It might be their great looks, who knows? It's because in your mind, they have created a reputation of sorts. If you are in the coaching or entrepreneurial space, mostly a reputation of delivering results. Your deepest ones are driving your consumption. Here's an interesting way of thinking about this. Why do people believe everything they see online? Because we assume they have reputation until proven otherwise. Or constant search for status makes people with reputation very appealing. So again, I'm still working a little bit on that, but what I'm trying to say, and that was like a moment of inspiration the other day, I have a huge moment of clarity, is that production can drive that perception of status, of reputation, right? Sure, you have to prove it, right? Once you start talking with your message, right? With your tonality, your eloquence, the value that you're delivering through your message, you have to prove it, your reputation, not only once, but if you catch people's attention, they're probably going to go to your content and they're going to start consuming a little bit more. They're going to start learning a little bit more about what you do. Do you have any social proof, right? And now, is you got to walk the walk, right? It's not just talk the walk, you got to walk it as well. But I think, now that we're having this conversation, that's where I place a lot of the production value. It's a great way to separate yourself from the people in the middle, right? And tell the person that is watching you maybe for the first time, hey, look, I have a reputation. Now with your message, you got to show it to them. You got to prove what that reputation is.
And I love that reputation is what brings them closer to you. And yes, the unfortunate fact is we've been taught that you got to just put out a ton of content constantly. And yes, it's great to put out a ton of content, but don't believe that you're going to be the best the first time you put it out. My one of my favorite people in the world, Seth Godin, talks about, people come up to him and ask and tell him, like, hey, I want a New York bestseller book. And he asks them, well, where is your bad writing? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, where's your bad writing? Where's your bad stuff? It's like, I don't have any bad stuff. Like, well, then how are you going to get to the good stuff? You got to get through the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. And that's why, like, teachers in school talk to you about free writing and, when English composition, just write. You're going to get all the dirty stuff out. And then you start coming with the good stuff. Yeah. He's known for, and you probably know this, he's been writing a newsletter or a email every single day for the past, I don't even know how many years. Yeah. And today's one really hit the nail. He talks about curation versus the road to junk. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. He's like, Amazon doesn't care about the shelf space problem because they have a ton of shelf space. But a bookstore down the street, an independent bookstore down the street will carefully curate what books they store in there because they don't have unlimited space. Yeah. They have very limited space. And I'm like, that's interesting because each book takes up a spot that a different book could easily inhabit, right? And same thing with YouTube. YouTube have hundreds and thousands of hours of videos being uploaded every single minute. Yeah. It's mind-blowing because they're counting on the person listening and watching the content is the one who's going to curate, right? So coming to that, it's interesting to see, being a publisher versus a creator, it puts a really strong information on you. It's like, hey, either you sell everything or you only put one specific thing, your name on. And I think a really great example is Mark Rober, who only puts out one video a month and he gets multi-million views because his focus is, hey, I'm going to make one video for the people that have never, ever seen me before.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful, and that's where the content is. That's the type of content that makes you profit. What do you think?
I love it. I mean, I agree 100% on how you approach this, and at the same time, I think we need to align and understand how we also like to create, right? Because the one daily email, for example, that could be a daily video for somebody else, and understanding the platform. So, Fancy Lives to Write, like that article, mind blown, great, awesome. You say it's a draft, publish it while it's not out. But on my side, that to me personally creates a ton of friction to write stuff like that. So I might think about 2-3 bullet points, and for me, I will probably see more value on creating a minute clip of something like that off the cuff, following my bullet points to a camera.
Yeah.
Would that hit? Maybe. I don't know, but that's my style to put the content out there. So I think that's also super important because, in the production level, we hear so much like, oh, you should be on YouTube. Oh, you should start a podcast. Oh, you should write a newsletter every single day. And what people don't account for is that they'll try to model something that somebody told them on a mastermind or an event, and that creates a ton of friction. And then what happens is like the execution is not there, and then nothing gets out. So start identifying, what do you like? Try writing every day. If that's not your thing, perfect. Try a video every day. If that's not your thing, perfect. Try not doing anything every day. I don't know, but we had an example which we share in the Capshovian slide, which is this lady that she was convinced for 2 years. We met her 2 years, and 2 years she was saying, I want to launch a podcast. I'm convinced this is the thing because somebody told her in a mastermind. And I was like, perfect. We can produce it, but let's jump on a strategy call beforehand to dive deep of why you want this podcast or if it fits your business model. And she had a brick and mortar cannabis business, right? I'm like, in my head, I haven't really, and we consume a ton of content. I haven't seen that specific one. I've seen a lot of kind of behind the scenes in the shops or like things that are happening in there for that type of business. And we start diving in. Well, it turns out she doesn't own equipment. She doesn't like to be on camera. She doesn't like to record audio, for example, right? There's a ton of friction. And for her, it was very exciting to sit down in her down hour and write. So she ended up doing a 3 time a week newsletter instead of a 3 time a week podcast, which is what she thought she wanted. So what you said, great, 100%. On my side is find the vehicle that creates the least friction for you to create. And then from there, yes, there's tools and tactics and there's platforms that will allow you to get more traffic and start identifying who can help you based on your initial content. So from my 1 minute video, we could potentially hire somebody that really enjoys writing, or Fonzie can take that video and take that idea further and they can write it, and then it's a great article which is for the company. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on your incredible point.
Let's dive a little bit into the tactical stuff, right? What we promised earlier. I'm curious. Definitely, there's different levels, right? Somebody that might have very little equipment to no equipment, just their phone. There's also people that have more resources and are willing to invest. So let's try to tackle a little bit of both, right? Yeah. What is a way to increase production value? A simple, quick way for somebody to increase production value that at the moment they might not have the financial resources to invest into a lot of equipment, but they already come with a phone or a entry-level camera. How can they make it look good?
Well, it's all about lighting, right? Getting the lighting correct on your setup, making sure that the room that you're shooting in, and you'll see a lot of people shoot outside because we have really nice lighting outside. The sun is out, and maybe you're using the shade, and maybe you're lit up properly. And when we set up studios, we light the space in a way that mimics that daylight lighting. The shadows in the right place, the softness of large light sources. So you're trying to mimic that when you're creating your content, when you're using your phone. So that might be the level 1, the novice. They're discovering their initial setup. They're starting with basic gear. They're understanding the significance of their space and what the acoustic potential could be. And the beautiful part of these smartphones that we have now, we've had these smartphones for the past almost 17 years. I mean, they've come a long way.
Yeah.
There's full feature films being produced using these cameras. In fact, Apple did their last event in October using the iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Yeah.
All the video was shot on the camera, on the phone camera, to an external drive. What was different still was, what the only thing that changed in the entire setup was the camera that they're using. So instead of using a Red or something else, they use the iPhone as a camera. But the lighting, they spent $120,000 on lighting.
Yeah.
Right. So audio again. So you want to make sure that your lighting is good.
Yep.
And your audio is good. So think about those two things when you're getting started, because if people can't hear your message, they can't follow along. They're just going to swipe up to the next video.
Yeah.
Right. So focus on getting good lighting and good video and good audio into that microphone, into that video. And the cheapest way to get started is you can get a lav mic, and there's $20 microphones. Just plug it in, and you're getting really high quality. So that's level 1, the novice, getting started, and
Dude,
that's how you get started.
I love it. A lot of people will think, which was my mindset initially too, it's like the camera. And it's not about the camera, right? Like you mentioned a couple things that, the camera is almost last there. It's like lighting and the microphone, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when you got the first light that we ever got, which is, takes half the room, but it's amazing. We look beautiful in them.
It's awesome. The light on that thing is
it's
magical.
It's clearly not here in the studio. It's still at home. But yeah, and Fonzie was like, everyone's like, it's all about the lighting. And it's crazy. Like once you get it right, the camera really becomes the last thing because, like you said, with smartphones, it's come a long way. It's really exciting.
Yeah, you actually can set up yourself, again, depending on the day. But if you have a window close to you, you can put yourself next to the window. And that's a great light source for, early stage video production, right? If you're shooting something on your phone, some sort of selfie video, get yourself next to the window. Don't shoot with the window behind you because you're just going to look like a villain, right? Have it kind of like at an angle to your face, a little bit diagonal, and you're going to look very, very nice. Honestly, that was a life-changing concept for me when I first started understanding lighting. Because I remember going to restaurants when we first, dive into the digital marketing world. We're going to restaurants and we're taking pictures of their products. And I'll look at this stuff. I was like, why doesn't it look like these other pictures? I'm taking it with a nice camera. Why doesn't it look good? Then I understood lighting. And also I understood that I had to edit the pictures. I didn't know that at first. It's quite terrible. But that was a good idea. Now, let's say we nailed down lighting. We understand that now. Okay, how... we can start creating a little bit of contrast on the back. If you're seeing Junaid right now, you can see he has, a little bit of background lighting in there with the red, the blue, creates a little bit of contrast between him and the background. We got a very terrible version of that here in blue that creates a little bit of contrast between us and the background. What else? How can they go after they master lighting? What would be the next step for them to create a good production?
So level 2 is what I call the hobbyist. They have enhanced equipment and soundproofing, right? So you've got a good audio, you got a good microphone, and you're like, okay, how can I level up my audio? So again, you want to focus on that audio. Your first budget should go into soundproofing or sound dampening or some kind of sound absorption. Audio treatment is what you want to spend time on in your space. And you'll hear a lot of video calls. There's a lot of echo. And people can't, it's not comfortable to your, it's not good to listen to your ears. So you want to invest in a microphone that you can afford. And you can start anywhere from $50 to $100 to $250. That's going to get you really good audio. And how important is the audio? I was at an event, at a dinner party, and somebody leaned over and was like, hey, are you Junaid from Chris's meeting? I was like, yes. He's like, I recognize you from your voice, because he'd heard me on Zoom calls prior months.
Yeah.
So he was able to recognize me because our voice is our signature. Our voice is our thumbprint that people can recognize us as soon as they listen to it.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Looking, in hindsight, the projects that I hate to edit the most are the ones that have terrible audio. Especially when people come here to the studio and they're like, "Yeah, our guest is coming online." I'm like, "No!" I was like, "Oh, I hope they know what they're doing." And then when I do the audio check and it's somebody, pretty much sitting in a box with all the echo in the world and no headphones, and there's feedback on the, on the audio. I was like, "Oh, please save me. This is gonna be rough," right? But yes, great audio is awesome. I love tuning into podcasts that you can hear good sound, good quality sound. Now, I will say this: I think our belief still stands on quality of the message over quality of the production. So get the reps. We talked about that a lot, right? Get the reps, practice, because you can have the best mic in the world, but if what you're sharing is not good, when you listen to it, you're going to be discouraged of keeping the creation efforts at bay. So make sure you are practicing and putting your message out into the world. But good audio makes a huge, huge difference.
Go ahead, Junaid. Sorry.
Yeah, so the hobbyists also, they also start to see the importance of visual aesthetics, and like, oh, do I look good? I've already paid attention on, using the window as my main light, but what's in my background? Do I have, dirty laundry? Do I have my bed not made up? Do I have a sofa with a dog sitting? That's actually a good touch. But again, you want to look at what is the camera seeing, and when I saw myself on camera from my previous recording in 2019 and early 2020, I was like, oh my God, this looks horrible. I need to switch this around. So this room that you see here, I've actually flipped the whole room, because before my desk used to be back there, and I would see these two windows in the camera. I was like, okay, I need to switch it around. So I switched it around. Even though I'm in the basement, it made the huge difference, because now I had windows in front of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, Junaid, obviously you have a ton of resources, right? That, every time we have a question on equipment, we're reaching out to you. We're like, tell us all the secrets. How can we do this? So we're definitely going to link everything right below, right here. And I encourage people, go dive deep. Add Junaid in any social media. I'm sure he's super accessible. If you get 1,000 messages, Junaid, it's definitely from this show. So careful with the inbox. But as we wrap up, man, thank you so much for diving into this. I think this is great. It's one of the stages that we talked about on the creation side, like how do we remove friction so we can actually create. And I love that you have these levels, right, where people can accept, be like, perfect, I am here at this moment. That's not going to stop me from creating.
Yeah.
It's actually going to encourage me to put in the reps so that we can level up and move forward, right? So if you're listening, you want to find out what the other 5 stages are, send us a message. We're happy to help you on that side of things with the full profit levers. But Junaid, is there anything else that you want to add before we head out?
I love what you said. You got to put in the reps. You got to get started where you are right now, because there are people that are in the same stage or phase that you're in. And when you start creating content from the current stage, you're going to attract a lot of followers. They're like, oh my God, I'm feeling the same thing. I'm going to follow you. And every once in a while, you see a post where somebody asks a question, and you'll see a ton of people saying, I'm following, because they want the answers to the same question. So get started. And guys, I've got a free gift for the listeners. It's called the 7 Stages of Home Studio Evolution, from beginner to broadcast quality, and that people can download. I'll share a link for it once it's ready.
Awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I just want to add what you just mentioned there about starting to create boils down to building that reputation. And I'm excited. Thank you for that resource. Definitely encouraging everybody to scroll down, tap on the link, get that resource. If you want to work closely with Junaid, make sure you contact him too. Where is the best, method for people to get in touch with you? What social media should they follow?
I'm on all social medias at Super Junaid. And if you want to learn more about the home studio part, go to homestudiomastery.com.
Love it. Thank you, Junaid.
Ooh, baby. I was just typing all the call to actions here. Guys, with that said, thank you so much for tuning to the Content Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at Base Bros Go.
That is Junaid here, help you move one step closer to looking super nice on camera. Please don't forget to share this episode. And of course, leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.